Hi. I still don't have a formal intro. So today I'm going to be coming at you not with a reaction video, not with a reaction/commentary video, but with a rare and unprecedented scripted video about sovereign citizens, of all people. So recently, Charlie, or Moist Critical, has been getting into reacting to body cams, and even more recently he's been reacting to people identified by the body cam channels as sovereign citizens. Shout out Charlie. Someone in chat in one of his more recent streams asked what sovereign citizens are, and Charlie said this.
I don't know who started this. I can say with like a high level of confidence it was a 4chan meme that people actually ran with, but that is the most commonly regurgitated line when it comes to sovereign citizens. I'm almost positive it was a 4chan meme where like it was a checkmate maneuver where if you're accused of being like whatever and they mention driving, you correct them and say you're not driving and it's traveling, and it's like you get away no matter what. Like, that's like the number one maneuver you can do. It has never once in the history of fucking police stops ever worked.
Which prompted somebody in his YouTube comments to say this. I have a little bit of familiarity with sovereign citizens, or as I'm going to be referring to them, sovcits, because one of my special interests is debunking and studying the conspiracy and misinformation space. Basically, they're people who believe that the laws of wherever they live, most commonly in the United States, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and I think Australia also, that those laws don't apply to them and they could do whatever they want free of consequences. A lot of people in chat in that stream and in the comments underneath that video were speculating about the birth of the sovereign citizen movement, which is why we're here today. However, I want to ask the important question. Not what are sovereign citizens, but why are sovereign citizens? So let's get into it. As stated by the Southern Poverty Law Center, sovereign citizens believe that they are not under the jurisdiction of the federal government and consider themselves to be exempt from U.S. law. They use a variety of conspiracy theories and falsehoods to justify their beliefs and their activities, some of which are illegal and nonviolent. The rejection of legal documentation such as social security numbers, driver's licenses, vehicle registration, and other forms of government identification lead to frequent interactions with law enforcement. Also, from a 2010 article on domestic terrorism from the FBI, sovereign citizens are anti-government extremists who believe that even though they physically reside in this country, they are separate or sovereign from the United States. As a result, they believe that they don't have to answer to any government authority, including courts, taxing entities, motor vehicle departments, or law enforcement. When it comes to body cam footage of traffic stops, sovcits usually have... Be quiet, Windows. When it comes to body cam footage of traffic stops, sovcits usually have plates that look like this, from the Wikipedia article, like this, available on eBay for $36.99 for the break-off Freeman, not to be confused with the Fremen from Frank Herbert's Dune.
Listen, I gave...
Or this, from Wikimedia, which is more exclusive to Black and African American sovcits. In an article titled Free Men, Sovereign Citizens, and the Challenge to Public Order in British Heritage Countries for the University of Alberta, Stephen Kent traces the origins of anti-tax sentiments, at least in the United States, back to Shays' Rebellion in the late 1780s, when farmers in western Massachusetts protested the collection of debts by creating blockades that prevented courts from meeting. In 2007, Michael Schaller traced the origins of tax resistance as a collective movement back to the 1970s in California, where he says, during the 1970s, stagnant incomes, resentment against poor and minorities who received welfare, and inflation-induced bracket creep that drove up tax rates sharpened this traditional anti-tax sentiment. By 1980, the proportion of Americans who viewed their federal income taxes as too high reached a record level. In addition, Social Security taxes and state and local income and property taxes rose sharply during the 1970s. Growing anti-tax sentiment among Americans of modest means dovetailed with the anti-tax beliefs of supply-siders and other economic conservatives. The tax revolt that began in California in 1978 put the anti-tax agenda on the front burner of American politics. However, the formal movement that we now call sovereign citizens, or sovcits, was started in 1971 by William Potter Gale, who had been a member of the white supremacist John Birch Society, which requires a whole video in and of itself. If anybody is interested, I'm more than happy to do it, but just for the sake of discussion, just know that that's what they are, who broke off and formed his own group based on anti-government Christian identity beliefs. Now, this is again another side note that probably requires its own video, but Christian identity with a capital C and a capital I is not just identifying as a Christian, it's not even really just Christian nationalism, it is a neo-fascist body of beliefs that is defined by only believing Anglo-Saxons and Aryans, those are the exact words they use, are God's chosen people. This was an offshoot of British Israelism, which believes that only white British people are God's chosen people that had been around since roughly the 16th century. Again, that's a whole other thing that requires its own video. If anybody's interested, leave a comment and I'll try to get something going there. However, back to William Potter Gale. Gale was born in 1916 somewhere in the Russian Empire. The reason I'm saying somewhere is because I can't find the exact place where he or his family are from, but in Daniel Levitas's interview with one of his daughters for an article titled Exploring What is Behind the Rare Phenomenon of Jewish Anti-Semites, Gale and his family allegedly fled their home due to anti-Semitic pogroms, which is what Americans might recognize as lynch mobs, and economic stability. But it doesn't exactly say where they were from or where they really lived before they fled to the United States. They changed their name from Grabifker to Gale, and eventually he abandoned Judaism altogether, raising the children that he had with his non-Jewish wife as Christians. According to Michael Barkin, Gale served during World War II under General Douglas MacArthur, and then, according to Chester Quarles, became an Episcopalian minister before leaving and starting his own church. When he started his own church, this is around the same time that he would join the John Birch Society. According to the SPLC, Gale believed, quote, that non-white people were not human, and that Jewish people were engaged in a satanic plot to take over the world. He died in prison in 1988 after being convicted of tax crimes in 1987. Rest in piss, you racist bitch. Sovereign Citizens identified as posse comitatus, which is Latin for power of the county, and centers on the idea that county sheriffs are the highest governmental authority. The SPLC also states that this stems from the Sheriffs Act of 1887 in the United Kingdom, which enabled sheriffs to form posses in order to catch criminals. If you're in the United States or anywhere else and you're familiar with United States history and the history of chattel slavery, you might be thinking, wow, I thought that was passed to kidnap people who had escaped enslavement. You would be incorrect, but not entirely wrong, because the United States absolutely did do that. That, however, was called the Fugitive Slave Act and was written into the Compromise of 1850, which utilized the existing Mason-Dixon line, dividing the country into states of cultural South and North, where chattel slavery was and was not legal, respectively. Anyway, when Gale formed his own posse...
What?
No, Madonna. Posse. Posse.
Oh.
They refused to pay their federal income taxes, filed property liens that had no legal standing, and committed acts of active violence against public officials like judges. So further, from the SPLC, Soffsets believe that the governmental structure that the Founding Fathers created was secretly replaced with what is referred to as admiralty or maritime law, governing anything happening in the ocean, usually private shipping. Some of them believe that this happened during the U.S. Civil War and like to blame abolitionists of slavery and Black and African Americans. Other people believe that this happened in 1933 when the U.S. formally abandoned the gold standard. Those people like to blame Jewish people.
Jews, why? Get out of here with that gay woke mind virus agenda. Go woke, go broke, checkmate. Tips Fedora, up dudes to the left, kind stranger.
For reference, in the US, the gold standard had been used from 1879 to 1933, and then again from 1944 to 1971, to tie the value of currency like paper and coinage money to a fixed amount of gold. This also factors into the value of a fixed amount of silver, which makes the system bimetallic. In either case, they used this to find the US government incapable of governing on this basis, and then also used it to accuse the government of enslaving American citizens to the economic interest of foreign nationals. Huh, I wonder who did that. Why does that sound familiar? But, try telling your sovereign citizen uncle that. They believe that the sale of a person begins when you're issued a social security number and a birth certificate with your name in all capital letters. They claim that the reason why it's all in capital letters is because a corporate trust exists at the Treasury Department, which is funded with various amounts of money depending on which person has cornered you to talk about this at a party. They call this a straw man, which you could allegedly claim, but let's be real here. If it were that easy, I wouldn't be struggling to find work with 2 fucking degrees. I assume this is why when so many of them are pulled over and the cop asks that they identify themselves in compliance with the law, they immediately demand payment?
Hey man, how you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Okay.
I'm here to help. I stopped, or he attempted to stop me while I was in the midst of going my way.
After you cut through a funeral home and drove a funeral procession and drove down the median, yes. So I need your driver's license and insurance.
Why?
We just told you. I just told you.
Yeah. Is that a violation?
Yes, it is a violation.
Of what right? Of what
driver's
code?
license? Listen, I'm not playing your game
law?
For too much longer. Okay.
I'm not trying to play a
you
game
are.
with you,
Driver's
sir.
license and insurance.
I'm not looking to play a game with you.
Okay.
I would like to know do you have a bona fide claim?
Driver's license and insurance, or
I have no problem. Are you hearing me not refuse to give him my license? I have no refusal, but it is going to take a payment.
Okay.
Am I not entitled
I'll pay you at the station.
Am I not entitled to an effective amount of payment or self-determination? I can determine the value of my own time. I can determine the value of my own private property.
Okay, perfect. Now your
Is it
driver's
not
license.
my right to pick who is my authority? You are not authority to me. I'm just here to help.
Okay, driver's license and insurance.
I would love to give it to you.
Okay.
Do you have $10,000 effective?
Yeah, I do. It's
But that's up for speculation. Another big aspect of Sovset culture is what is known as, quote, paper terrorism, which is defined by Robert Chamberlain and Donald P. Hayter-Markle as the use of false liens, frivolous lawsuits, bogus letters of credit, and other legal or pseudo-legal documents lacking sound factual basis as a method of harassment against an opponent on a scale described as evocative of conventional armed terrorism. Again, I assume this is why they bother to print fake plates and tape it on their car, as well as whenever they're pulled over, they immediately pull out an entire manila envelope of paperwork just to toss at the cops like pocket sand.
Yes, it is. The reason for the stop today is that unopened your tags are expired. Do you have your license on now? And is that a firearm under your jacket? Don't reach for it, just answer it. I don't know. I'm asking if it's a firearm, so if you reach for it, we have issues.
It is.
Okay, don't ever reach for it, okay?
The transport is my order. I promise this was an order when I put it in.
Despite being insistent that she read the papers to the officers, it takes Green Carnes a while to get things organized. But she finally finds what she's looking for.
So, as you're asking me for my driver's license, I do want you to know that the right of the citizen to travel upon public highways and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will, but a common right which he has under his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under this constitutional guarantee, one may, therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclination along the public highways or in public places, and while conducting himself in an orderly and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights. He will be protected, not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. And I can give you where to find that if you would like.
And we don't need to. The U.S. Supreme Court has already squashed that, so...
No, the U.S. Supreme Court has not.
Yes, they have. And you do have a right to travel. You have a right to travel by your feet or your horse, but you have to have a driver's license.
No, you do not.
Okay.
Imagine late series Dale Gribble on King of the Hill harassing the DMV for getting Hank's gender marker wrong on his license and then refusing to fix it.
Excuse me!
What now, Dale?
I am Dale Gribble, American citizen, and I demand that you help my disturbed friend here.
I'm sorry, sir, but the state requires...
Listen! I've never been able to say this in my whole life, but as of 2 p.m. yesterday, I am a taxpayer, and I demand $36 worth of service.
Sir, if you...
I know the chain of command, starting with your supervisor, Franklin Thomas, all the way up to the underintendent of transportation, Edward Dibble, whose daughters, Pat and Ellie, played ladybug soccer with the daughters of the President of the United States. And I'm not afraid to make some phone calls. I'm your worst nightmare. I have a 3-line phone and nothing at all to do with my time.
Except 10 times as physically and vocally aggressive. In fact, according to the SPLC, in 2017, Sovsets in Colorado were arrested after they were found to be operating their own court circuit. This included fake court hearings and fake trials, completely independent of the local judiciary establishment. 2 members of this group were actually sent to prison from anywhere from 22 to 38 years. In 2021, a woman in Utah was arrested for failure to appear over traffic tickets, and instead of taking the L, she pleaded, quote, the 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments and said they couldn't touch her anyway because common law courts were hearing her case already. Then, at another appearance, she filed 24 objections to the hearing. Even more recently, in 2023, sovereign citizen Chase Allen was shot and killed during a traffic stop after he attempted to pull a loaded gun on the responding officer while refusing to comply with their orders. You know what his family and the sovereign citizen group that they were affiliated with did after his death? They held a vigil where they asked everybody to harass law enforcement on the, quote, right to travel. Yeah, that's what they did. They had an opportunity to reflect on their behavior and their body of beliefs, and instead, they said, "More! The right to travel is a staple of every soft-sit traffic stop I have ever seen, where they claim that because they are not operating a vehicle for commercial purposes, they don't need a license, vehicle registration, or even insurance. Soft-sits will do, in general, literally anything to convince the cops that what they're driving is not a vehicle, is not a car, is not even a thing that can be driven. They always call it personal property.
Okay, do you have a driver's license with you?
I don't care. Are you looking to identify me by my nationality or by
you're
a federal employee, which is not.
Okay, you're operating a motor vehicle on the roadway in the state of Florida.
It's not a motor vehicle.
Okay, what is it?
It's not a motor vehicle.
What is it?
It's not a motor vehicle.
What is it?
A driver's license is required by.
If this isn't a motor vehicle, can you explain to me what it is?
This is a vehicle, not a motor vehicle. It's not a motor vehicle.
Okay, how do the wheels move?
It's not a motor vehicle.
With a motor, correct? Okay, do you have any driver's license? Have you ever had a driver's license?
Sir, I don't carry a driver's license. I don't carry a driver's license. Driver's license is not required to operate my private vehicle at all.
Okay, so I think the argument you're trying to make is that you have a right to travel.
I definitely do have a right to travel, but I don't.
But operating a motor vehicle
I don't really have to
on the roadways in the state of Florida is a privilege.
See, you're saying a motor vehicle. It's not a motor vehicle.
Well, this would be classified as a motor vehicle.
No, a motor vehicle is not. This is not a motor vehicle.
What is it then? If it's not a motor vehicle, what is it? Do you think they're going to have a different opinion than me?
It's not much that can be said. You can call your superior officer out because
there's people coming, because that's what you want. You want to make a spectacle out of this, you're going to get one, okay? Okay, so I'm failing to understand.
That's a decision.
Where you think that driving a motor vehicle is
you keep saying
is
motor
a right
vehicle.
Well, okay, what's under the hood of this?
It is a motor in here, but there's certain.
And what is a vehicle? What's your definition of a vehicle?
This is not a.
It's got wheels on it and it drives, right?
It's not a motor vehicle.
Okay. Well, I guess magic under the hood drives a vehicle, right?
Go fuck yourselves. Just go fuck yourselves. I'm sorry. Actually, I'm not sorry. You were the cause of all legal problems in your life.
You are all the things that are wrong with you.
You are literally the problem. Now, let's pump the brakes for a moment, pun intended. If you're a registered driver in whatever state or territory or country you live in, and you are debating on whether or not to add that uninsured motorist coverage to your car insurance,
do it. Do it. Do it.
Because these people are out on the road waiting to hit you.
I'm not out here causing any harm. I'm not bothering anybody.
So what are you gonna do when you hit my old lady with my kid in the car?
I'm not gonna hit anybody, and if I did, I'll pay for it.
You don't know that?
I know I can pay for it.
How's that? I mean, what if she drives a daggum $200,000 car?
Then I guess I'll be working for you the rest of my life.
Seems like we all have to anyway, don't we?
But I'm not working for you now.
They are out on the road just looking to cause problems. So, do yourself a favor. Do the world a favor. Get the uninsured motorist coverage, okay? Cool. Let's back to the video. So since we talked about the general origins of sovereign citizens, I want to talk about the offshoot group of Moorish nationals. As defined by the SPLC, the Moorish sovereign citizen movement is a collection of independent organizations and individuals that emerged in the early 1990s as an offshoot of the anti-government sovereign citizen movement, adherents of which believe that individual citizens can hold sovereignty over and are independent of the authority of federal and state governments. They draw their name from the Moorish Science Temple of America, which was founded around the mid-1920s by Timothy Drew, who referred to himself as Noble Drew Ali. Ali was born in Simpsonbuck County, North Carolina. However, one complicating factor of the origins of his birth is that this county, according to Michael Gomez, does not exist and has never existed. Gomez also states that few of the details concerning Noble Drew's childhood and early development are verifiable. So, there's that. All we can say is that he was definitely a guy who was alive at some point and existed on paper. There are at least two schools of thought on the general progression of his life. One is that he was the orphan son of two former enslaved people. Another possibly says that his father was Muslim and his mother was Salagi. That is the ancestral word for Cherokee. According to the New York Public Library, a common belief among people in the church is that he was raised by an aunt who abused him, left home at 16, and joined a roving troop of Romani with whom he traveled to Egypt and other places in the Middle East. In 1913, he formed the first iteration of the Moorish Science Temple called the Canaanite Temple in Newark, New Jersey. He incorporated aspects of Buddhism, Confucianism, Christianity, and Islam and used it as a foundation to platform some stuff, some beliefs, some views. According to Tasneem Pagdiwala for the Chicago Reader, Drew claimed that blacks in America were sinfully ignorant of their true racial heritage. They were all descendants of the Moors, a Moroccan Muslim tribe that conquered Spain in the 7th century and spread Islam to Europe. He started dressing in Moorish fashion, fezzes and feathered turbans and silk robes with a curved sword at his side. When the Moors' descendants were brought to America in slave ships, he said, white slave owners systematically hid the truth of their noble origins and renamed them black, colored, and I don't think I'm black enough to say that word. Just as bad, these, quote, so-called blacks forgot Islam and took up the false god of the Europeans. Drew had been dispatched by Allah to eradicate the slave marks from blacks in America. His job was to inform them that their true name was not black or colored or, again, I don't know if I'm black enough to say that word, but Moorish American, and return them to Islam, or Islamism, as he called it. Now, the reason why this is important is because when the Moorish offshoot of sovereign citizens started to rise to prominence, the Moorish Science Temple of America actually issued a statement in 2011 saying, "We assertively declare that the Moorish Science Temple of America Incorporated is in no form or fashion a sovereign citizen movement or tax protester movement. Consequently, our teachings are diametrically opposed to that ideology. The Holy Prophet Noble Drew Ali did not establish the MSTA for its members to become anarchist or conspiracy theorists." The reason why this is so important is because it seems that what bridges the gap between the mainstream sovereign citizen movement and Sovsits who are affiliated with either the Moorish National movement or the MSTA is something called Washita Nation, which is an explicitly African-American Sovsit group that identifies as sovereign Native American, which, according to the SPLC in 1999, was appropriated from the Washita, who previously claimed ancestral territory in Louisiana. Mark Pickavage writes that a woman named, and I'm gonna need a minute to properly pronounce this, Empress Verdiace Tiara Washita Turner Gostin El Bay, that's her whole name, claimed to be the head of what she called the Washita Empire. Pickavage also writes, Washita Nation adherents claim to be descended from the ancient mound builders of the Mississippi-Missouri Valley and to actually own the Louisiana Purchase. After the Empress retired, the original Washita group fell apart, replaced with a variety of different groups and individuals taking up the Washita Nation mantle. So today, there is not just one Washita Nation, but many, making it one of the most important wings of the Moorish sovereign citizen movement. So the reason why all of this is a ratio of hilarious to frightening is because sovereign citizens will not just commit acts of paper terrorism or public nuisance acts through bureaucratic red tape and body cams. They will commit acts of physical violence and domestic terrorism. If you were around in 2014 or 2016, you may remember the Bundy Ranch standoff and the occupation of Malheur Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. The incident surrounded Clive Bundy, a rancher who had been in a dispute with the Bureau of Land Management for over 20 years. It started in 1993 when U.S. Fish and Wildlife formulated a habitat conservation project to protect several endangered species in the area where he grazed his cattle. Bundy refused to sell the grazing rights on his land back to the government, and like many other ranchers in the area did, and protested by just not paying the renewal fees. The next year, they canceled his grazing permits. Even though the BLM tried to work with him, Bundy stated he did not recognize their authority and used the legal system as a weapon in order to get his way. He racked up over $1 million in fees and fines, which is over 53 times the amount of debt owed by the collective rest of grazing permit holders in the entire state of Oregon, as reported by Portland's Oregonian newspaper. Coincidentally, it is over 4 times the amount of fees owed by the totality of grazing permit holders nationwide. How do you fuck up that badly? On purpose! Because of this, he proceeded to let his cattle graze illegally anyway. In 1998, the BLM was authorized by Oregon courts to remove his cattle and levy damages against him for the illegal grazing. In March 2014, Bundy sent letters to officials at every level to alert them that he would basically be swinging a bat at a hornet's nest and seeing what happens. Or, in today's terminology, he was gonna fuck around and find out. Garnered support from various white supremacist and white nationalist militias who came to his aid. In April, an armed group of demonstrators, local and non-local, responded to the seizing of Bundy's cattle along with a group of unarmed demonstrators. On April 10th, the BLM issued a statement alleging that protesters were attacking federal agents by means of hitting them with vehicles, kicking police dogs, and physically assaulting officers. The standoff ultimately became an encampment that lasted months. This eventually gave way to the armed standoff at Malheur Wildlife Refuge in January of 2016, spearheaded by Clive's sons, Ryan and Ammon. It lasted roughly 40 days when the last person occupying it was arrested. Clive was actually arrested at PDX on his way to the armed occupation the day before it ended. He was charged with 16 federal felonies, but 2 years later the charges against him and his sons were dismissed with prejudice. 12 co-conspirators pleaded guilty, 4 were convicted by a federal jury, and a total of nearly $80,000 in fines were spread among 13 defendants. One occupier, Lavoy Finicum, was shot and killed by police while allegedly resisting arrest. Now, while there are disputes as to whether he did or did not resist arrest or attempt to pull a handgun on police, here's something that is especially chilling to come out of that. When his death was announced to the public, Clive Bundy, whose fault this all is, said he was sacrificed for a good purpose. Remember when I said that vegan teacher, if hell is empty, she's the one person that's going there? There's gonna be 2. And if his sons are included, that's 4. Imagine that you are this man's loved one, and you have just lost him in the midst of one of the most scary, confusing, publicized acts of domestic terrorism of the current contemporary moment. And the guy whose fault it ultimately is says, oh, don't worry, it's a good thing that he died. I don't even know what I would do in that instance.
You'd be fine! No, I think I'd go maximum crazy. I'd murder Bill, burn down the neighborhood, Roger!
That brings us to the present day, where sovereign citizens are being paraded out in public for the egotistical freaks that they are through body cam footage and their unhinged behavior. These people will put their own guys in harm's way to the point that it results in their death and not even give 2 fucks of a shit. Absolutely putrid.
You're not going to heaven.
Ultimately, I'm all here for exposing these dipshits for, in Charlie's words, the absolute horseradish behavior that they are pulling every single day and expecting people to just take at face value. When I talk about this through the lens of body cams, though, I am by no means saying that the police are always right 100% of the time. What I am saying is that in nearly every video that I have seen of sovereign citizens being detained, arrested, or even just stopped on the side of the road, they are actively looking to pick fights for nothing. They think that they're special for no other reason other than just wanting to be, and then when they find out that they aren't, they make it everybody else's problem. At this point, I feel like they should be considered an official public nuisance. Like, even in body cams that I've seen, they have a special code for people like this. Because the things that they do are causing at least mild harm to their communities and the people around them. I just can't stand an entire political affiliation that is rooted in oppositional defiance. Like, oh, you don't want to follow the rules? You want to make your own rules that effectively mean that there are no rules at all? Go back to preschool, you fucking degenerates. If you've made it this far and you're curious about having anything to do with the sovereign citizens just because their anti-tax sentiment or their anti-government sentiments feel appealing to you, I need you to listen to my next words very carefully. These people do not care about you. They demonstrably do not care about you. They will throw you under the bus for absolutely nothing, and when you are reaching out for help, they will turn their backs on you. The Bundys already let someone die just for the sake of spiting the government. What do you think they're going to do to you? Do not fall, again, as Charlie says, for this absolute horseradish ideology. Just please do not go down that hole, because odds are you may not come back out. Anyway, I just thought that might be interesting because I've been watching a lot more of Charlie's videos, and he seems to be watching a lot more of the body cams of sovereign citizens, so let me just do this and, educate the masses on why it is that these people behave the way that they do.
Take it, friends. Arm yourselves with knowledge.
Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Stay tuned for tomorrow, when it'll be tomorrow. Bye.